Here at Deep Dive True Crime, we have trials that you will not find anywhere else. This one in particular is going to be quite intense. It involves Brittany and Pedro, and the death of one of Brittany's two children, 1-year-old Alex. This is the trial in the case of State of Florida versus Pedro Agustin Ramirez Alvarado. If you are a regular to our channel, then it is likely that you already know about this case. Perhaps you watched The Brittany Show, the full interrogation of Brittany Delgado. If you did, then you saw photos of the filthy conditions of the mobile home where Brittany and Pedro lived together as a couple, raising Brittany's children, 2 boys aged 1 and 3. And if you watched her interrogation, you likely recall that Brittany Delgado, who is in her mid-20s when the events that led to Pedro's trial happened, had 3 additional children, who she had to give up to the state of Virginia, for a total of 5 children. You may also recall that Florida child protection investigators were already looking into how Brittany was raising her 2 subsequent children after she moved to Florida to live with Pedro, and were ready to offer help. But if you watched Brittany's show, her interrogation, you are more likely to remember the horrific fate of Brittany's 2 little boys. The smaller one, Alex, died at the age of just 1 year old. The oldest one, Julio, also referred to as Casper, survived. Both of them had been left alone in a hot room of the mobile home, with the heater on, while Brittany was busy on the phone with an insurance company, and Pedro was doing something else. You may also remember all of Brittany's excuses, and all the blame she tried to put on Julio, the 3-year-old, and on Pedro. Watching this trial will give us a greater insight, hopefully, about what happened that fateful day, and why a precious 1-year-old child died in such a horrific way. And watching this trial, you will also get to see Brittany's latest show, her performance on the witness stand, since she was called as a witness by the prosecution. Finally, you will get to see Pedro testify in his own defense. So, let's get started on the trial. Justice for baby Alex. Here we go! This video covers the opening statements and the testimony of the following witnesses called by the state. Brittany Delgado, Ryan Kessling, formerly with the Leon County Sheriff's Office. Alyssa Graham, former Leon County EMS. Caitlin Burnett, Tallahassee Fire Department. Timothy Vernon, Tallahassee Fire Department. Paul Connell, Detective, Leon County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Judith Cook, Leon County Sheriff Office. Lieutenant Justin Woodall, Leon County Sheriff's Office. Dr. Lisa Flanagan, Medical Examiner. Presiding over the trial is Circuit Court Judge William Gary, serving as a senior judge. The prosecutor team consists of Savannah Jacobs as lead counsel and Ryan Fields as second chair. The defense attorney for Pedro is Mr. Edward Eteralde. The jury is composed of 5 women and 1 man, plus 1 female alternate.
Any other matters?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Edward Eteralde on behalf of Pedro Ramirez Alvarado. We have an outstanding motion in limine. I don't know if the court had a copy of it.
No, I don't. I didn't have a copy of the witness list because y'all didn't file them as you were supposed to under the rules. If you'd like to provide me with a copy, I'll be more than happy to look at it.
Yes, sir. May I approach?
Absolutely. Thank you.
That motion in limine, last thing in the trial.
Do you have an issue?
I don't. This is my copy. And I mentioned it yesterday.
Yeah, I just didn't see it. I thought you would just filed it.
It was filed in January. MS-13. Any question, witness statements without a hearsay exception, and the photographs of the children, to the extent that they're no prejudice in the group. I understand that there's a couple of them that are
Okay.
Yes, sir. The three items we're asking that are not mentioned are any reference to my client being a member of MS-13. That's not true. It's never been shown. There was some reference to it in early police reports. We don't want that coming in. It's not relevant at all to the case, and it's highly prejudicial to suggest that he's a member of some gang. Number two, there were a number of witness statements of neighbors and other folks. I would ask that there be no mention of those by the officers unless there's some sort of valid hearsay exception. And third, there's quite a number of photographs of the child victims in this case. I understand that the state may want to introduce some of those, but a lot of them are very graphic in nature, autopsy photos. There's really not a dispute that one child died and one child was injured. Still, it's an element of their proof, but I don't think that we need excessive numbers of those photographs to inflame the jury's sentiment. I would ask that they be limited in scope, if allowed at all.
Says state.
Yes, Your Honor. So as far as A goes, I agree that that's not relevant, and I don't
Well, see,
plan.
we started today with all of us agreeing on one thing so far. Okay.
Yes, sir. I think that clearly, I plan on, obviously, I think I've told most, if not all, of my witnesses already that should, any sort of criminal history or potential gang affiliation should not be discussed. As far as B goes, I'll just state I plan on following the rules of evidence, and that if there's something that comes up, I anticipate there to be an objection. I don't know specifically, I don't know exactly how the testimony is going to come out and what specific statements this point is referring to, but I don't plan on eliciting any hearsay knowingly or intentionally. So that's what I'll say as to B. For C, I think total of the surviving child victim, I only have 2 photographs from him in the hospital. I think that they are very probative, obviously, to proving the state's case, showing the level of injury in the state that he was in at the time that he was admitted to the hospital. There were numerous photographs taken. I have chosen 2 out of those photographs to show. I also have a photograph of him from more recently in his wheelchair from his foster mother, as well as a video of him that I believe is probative, showing his current state of functioning.
Your Honor, if I could interject, I did see the more recent photos that she's discussing of the surviving child in the video. I have no objection to those being introduced. If I could see the other 2 photos,
Sure.
I could probably stipulate to those as well.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then as far as the autopsy photos of the deceased child goes, Your Honor, again, there were numerous photos taken. However, I have chosen, with the help of Dr. Flanagan, 6, only 6 of the autopsy photos. 5 out of the 6 of them are external photos. There's only one internal photo of the deceased child's body. And again, the reason that these photos were picked was in consultation with Dr. Flanagan. She believes, as I believe, that they are probative to proving how he died and showing the jury, obviously, that he is deceased.
I would maintain my objection, but leave it to the court.
Well, I haven't seen the pictures.
Yes, sir.
Would you like me to approach, Judge?
Please. As to the 6 photos, I'm going to deny your motion in limine.
Understood, but only those 6.
Just these 6.
Very good, sir.
May I retrieve the exhibits, Judge?
Absolutely. Now, was the jury sworn yesterday?
No,
It was
Your Honor,
not,
they
sir.
were not.
Good. Any other matters?
Yes, sir, I have one additional matter, and this is minor. I filed a previous motion to suppress. Judge Everett denied it. I have no problem with that. I just want to have a standing objection. I don't want to have to object every time a statement is
As
made.
far as I'm concerned, for appellate purposes, should that become necessary, you have raised your objections at all appropriate times, and the ruling has been the same as it was before.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Okay? Anything else?
Not from the defense.
Not from the state, Judge.
Okay, we ready for the jury?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's bring them on.
Oh, the only other thing, Judge, I believe the interpreters were sworn yesterday, but I would just ask that they be sworn again today.
Who?
The interpreters, Mr. Alvarado, Ramirez Alvarado needs an interpreter, so I would
Right.
just ask that they be certified or sworn today, just for record purposes.
Okay. You want to swear them in? Swear them in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will make a true interpretation of the questions asked and the answers given from Spanish to English and English to Spanish, and that you will make a true translation of any writing that you're required by the duties to decipher or translate? If so, say I will. I will.
And you both are, excuse me?
Certified Spanish interpreter.
Both of,
Certified Spanish interpreter.
that was my question for you. Thank you. Okay, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Let's bring the jury on.
Jury in the courtroom.
You seated, please. They're standing for you. You come in and just have a seat. Okay? You Be seated, please. Good morning. I am not the same judge as you saw yesterday. You saw Judge Allman, I believe. I'm Judge Gary. I'm a senior judge, which means they dust me off and bring me in every once in a while when the need arises. Have any of you gained any new knowledge about this case since you broke yesterday? Good. Madam Clerk, if you would please administer the oath to the jury panel.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will well and truly try the issues between the state of Florida and the defendant and render a true verdict according to the law and evidence? If so, say I will. I will.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been selected and sworn as a jury to try the case of the state of Florida versus Pedro A. Ramirez Alvarado. Can you hear me all right? If at any time you cannot, raise your hand, because I'm getting old and my voice takes a hike on me every once in a while. This is a criminal case. Mr. Alvarado has been charged, excuse me, with 1 count of aggravated manslaughter of a child, excuse me, and 1 count of aggravated child neglect causing great bodily harm. The definition of the elements of these crimes will be explained to you later. It is your solemn responsibility to determine if the state has proved its accusations beyond a reasonable doubt against Mr. Alvarado. Your verdict must be based solely on the evidence or lack of evidence and the law. Now, the information that was read to you yesterday is not evidence and it is not to be considered by you as any proof of guilt. It is the judge's responsibility to decide which laws apply to this case and to explain those laws to you. It is your responsibility to decide what the facts of this case may be and to apply the law to those facts. Thus, the province of the jury and the province of the court are well defined and they do not overlap. This is one of the fundamental principles of our system of justice. Now, before proceeding further, it may be helpful if you understand how a trial is conducted. At the beginning of the trial, the attorneys will have an opportunity, if they wish, to make an opening statement. The opening statement gives the attorneys a chance to tell you what evidence they believe will be presented during the trial. What the lawyers say is not evidence, and you are not to consider it as such. Following the opening statements, witnesses will be called to testify under oath. They will be examined and cross-examined by the attorneys. Documents and other exhibits also may be produced as evidence. And after the evidence has been presented, the attorneys will have an opportunity to make their final arguments. After I will instruct you on the law applicable to this case prior to them giving their final arguments. After the instructions are given, you will be released and you will retire to consider your verdict. You should not form any definite or fixed opinion on the merits of this case until you've heard all the evidence, the argument of the lawyers, and the instructions on the law from me. Until that time, you should not discuss the case among yourselves. Now, during the course of the trial, the court may take recesses, during which time you'll be permitted to separate and go about your personal affairs. During these recesses, you will not discuss the case with anyone, nor permit anyone to say anything to you or in your presence about the case. If anyone attempts to say anything to you or in your presence about the case, tell that person that you're on the jury trying the case and ask them to stop. If they persist, please leave them at once and immediately report the matter to the bailiff, who will advise me. This case must be tried by you only on the evidence presented during the trial, in your presence and in the presence of Mr. Alvarado, the attorneys, and myself. Jurors must not conduct any investigation on their own. Accordingly, you must not visit any of the places described in the evidence, and you must not read nor listen to any reports about the case. Further, you must not discuss the case with any person, and you must not speak with the attorneys, the witnesses, or Mr. Alvarado about any subject until your deliberations are completed. Now, in every criminal proceeding, a defendant has the absolute right to remain silent. At no time is it the duty of a defendant to prove his innocence. From the exercise of a defendant's right to remain silent, a jury is not permitted to draw any inference of guilt, and the fact that a defendant did not take the witness stand must not influence your verdict in any manner whatsoever. Now, the attorneys are trained in the rules of evidence and trial procedure, and it is their duty to make all objections they feel are proper. When an objection is made, you should not speculate on the reason why it is made. Likewise, when an objection is sustained or upheld by me, you must not speculate on what might have occurred had the objection not been sustained, nor what a witness might have said had the witness been permitted to answer. If you would like to take notes during the trial, you may do so. On the other hand, of course, you are not required to take notes if you do not want to. That will be left up to you individually. I believe you've been provided with notes and pens, correct? For your use if you wish to take notes. Any notes that you take will be for your personal use. However, you should not take them with you from the courtroom. During recesses, the bailiff will take the possession of the notes and will return them to you when we reconvene. After you have completed your deliberations, the bailiff will deliver your notes to me. They will be destroyed. No one will ever read your notes. I guarantee it. If you do take notes, don't get so involved in note-taking that you become distracted from the proceedings. Your notes should be used only as aids to your memory. Now, whether or not you take notes, you should rely on your memory of the evidence, and you should not be unduly influenced by the notes of other jurors. Notes are not entitled to any greater weight than each juror's memory of the evidence. You ready to proceed with opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go
May I
ahead.
proceed?
Absolutely.
May it please the court, counsel, may I have just a podium, please?
Absolutely.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Long time no see. No, it's been since yesterday. I won't belabor the point, kind of like I did yesterday, but I do want to thank you for your time serving as jurors in this case. It is obviously very important, not just to the people of the state of Florida, but to Mr. Ramirez Alvarado as well. And I just ask that you please pay close attention throughout the evidence that you're going to hear today and possibly into tomorrow. Some of the evidence may be a little dense or fact intensive, so just please pay attention. Opening statements are kind of like a roadmap. It's where we tell you what we anticipate that the evidence is going to show you, or what we think you're going to see and hear. And I like to think of evidence as puzzle pieces. One piece of evidence, one piece of testimony, one photograph, not enough to prove a case necessarily. However, when you put all of the pieces together, all of the photographs, all of the testimony, all of the things, at the end of the case, you'll have a clear picture. And I anticipate that that clear picture is going to be that this defendant is guilty of the crimes with which he is charged. You're going to hear from quite a few witnesses about what happened on December 10th, 2019. This was at 6054 Dome Level Road. That's a trailer here in Tallahassee. It was a home that Miss Brittany Delgado and Pedro Ramirez Alvarado, the defendant, lived in with two small children, the victims in this case. The 1-year-old child, his initials are YD, his name was Jonathan Delgado. And then the 3-year-old child, his initials are JM, his name was Julio Montaneros. I anticipate that you will hear from Ms. Delgado. I anticipate that you will hear that she was also charged in this case, that she has been given nothing ever from the state. She's been given no consideration. In fact, I anticipate that she will tell you that she entered what's called an open plea, meaning that she wanted the judge to sentence her. So she took responsibility for her crimes, what she committed, the fact she's charged with the same thing that Mr. Ramirez Alvarado is charged with, aggravated manslaughter of a child and aggravated child neglect causing great bodily harm. That she entered an open plea because she did not want what the state was offering her, which was the maximum sentence allowable in this case. She asked the judge, who is not Judge Gary, it was a different judge named Judge Everett, to sentence her. We had a sentencing hearing, and she was sentenced by that judge. And during that hearing, I anticipate that she'll tell you that I also asked for the maximum sentence for her to be imposed. She's never been given any consideration in this case. And I anticipate all she's really going to tell you about is the relationship between her and this defendant. The fact that they were in a relationship, it was a romantic relationship, they called each other husband and wife even though they technically were not married, and the fact that they took care of these children together even though they were not Mr. Ramirez Alvarado's biological children. They were the only two living in the home, and they were the only two taking care of these children. That's really all she's going to tell you. The facts of the rest of the day are going to come from the rest of the witnesses. You're going to hear from one of the responding officers who will tell you about his observations when he got to the scene. I anticipate that he, as well as the EMTs and firefighters who responded, will tell you the state that they observed the children in when they got there. That the 1-year-old, Jonathan, appeared to already be dead by the time that they got there. They'll explain to you why they thought that, and that they were eventually able to resuscitate the 3-year-old child, Julio. That both of the children were extremely pale. They were very sweaty. Their skin was extremely hot to the touch, immediately noticeable. That their diapers were soiled, wet, and saggy. You'll hear from one of the officers who entered and cleared the home. And I anticipate that he'll tell you when he went to the back bedroom where the children were ultimately told to police to have them located. When he opened the door, he felt a blast of hot air hit him. The room where these children were kept. You'll see photographs of the scene, I anticipate. You'll see photographs of this trailer, the state of the trailer, the state that these children were living in. You'll see the room where the space heater was, the state of that room. And I anticipate that you'll notice that other than a dirty diaper on the floor and a stroller, that there is nothing for children in that room. Not a crib, not a pack and play, not toys, nothing but trash. And a space heater. You'll see what happened to the children after they were taken from the scene. You'll see the photos of Julio in the hospital. He had to be intubated, meaning he had to have a tube shoved down his throat. He had to have a tracheotomy placed because he couldn't breathe on his own. He had to have a G-tube or a feeding tube placed because he couldn't eat. And he was in essentially a catatonic state. He survived, but suffered severe brain damage because of this incident, because of how long he was unconscious and without oxygen. He sustained very serious injuries that, in what I anticipate you'll hear from the doctor's opinions, that he will never recover from. Some things have gotten better over time, but he will never live a normal life. You'll also see the autopsy photos of the deceased child, and you'll hear from Dr. Flanagan, who performed the autopsy on him. You will hear the process of conducting an autopsy, how she conducts an autopsy, and you'll ultimately hear that her opinion, based on what she saw and what she knew about the case, that the cause of death for 1-year-old Jonathan was hyperthermia, that he overheated to the point where his body shut down. I anticipate that you will also hear from Dr. Lee Bouchon. He is a professor at FAMU, and very shortly after this incident, the sheriff's office and Dr. Bouchon conducted a recreation of sorts at the scene. So they used the same trailer, they used the same room, and they used the same space heater. And Dr. Bouchon will tell you about this recreation he did, essentially. Obviously, people were not used. He will tell you how long, in his opinion, based on the science that he used. He'll tell you about, the temperature fluctuations, the temperature of the room that day, of how long it took for the space heater to heat the room to the point where it would have caused these children to overheat and die. And I anticipate that what he's going to tell you is that this was not quick. This was not an accident where they took their eyes off the kids for 2 seconds and they fell in the pool and they drowned. I anticipate that what you are going to hear is that this took hours. Hours for these children to sustain these injuries. Hours where they were left alone in that room, to the point where one passed away and one almost did. The state has charged both Brittany Delgado and Pedro Ramirez Alvarado for these crimes because both of them are responsible. Both of them are equally responsible to these children, and both of them had a duty to protect.
Objection, argument.
Sustains. Move on.
At the end of this case, ladies and gentlemen, I think it will be very clear to you from the evidence. And the puzzle pieces will lay out, like I said, a very clear picture that this defendant did not protect these children and that they did not have to suffer this fate. And I'm going to ask that you find him guilty. Thank you.
Counsel?
Your Honor, we'd like to reserve our opening to the defense's case.
Okay. Call your first witness.
State calls Brittany Delgado.
Okay. Okay. It's going to take about 10 minutes to get her here.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Why don't we give you your first break of the day? As soon as the witness is available, we will call you back in. During the break, do not discuss the case among yourselves or allow anyone to discuss it in your presence. Thank you. Have a seat. While we're waiting on the witness, I noticed that in the charging document, Mr. Alvarado is charged as Pedro A. Ramirez Alvarado. And that is one and the same person as Pedro Agustin Ramirez Alvarado?
Yes, sir. I think we just put his initial instead of the full middle name.
I just want to make sure we're talking about one and the same person.
Yes, sir.
You agree?
I don't know who they intended to charge, Judge.
Huh?
I don't know who they intended to charge, Judge.
Well, we're going with the as charged Pedro A. Ramirez Alvarado. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Good. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, you got
I'm going to take an opportunity to explain some of the first thing.
We're not going to get her.
Sorry. That's fine.
Let's bring the jury. We need the clerk. I couldn't see you. Have a seat. If you would, face this lady and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes. Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. May I just the podium?
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Brittany Delgado.
And Ms. Delgado, do you know Pedro Ramirez Alvarado?
Yes,
Okay. How do you know him?
he is my fiance.
Back in December of 2019, do you remember where you were living?
Yes, it was 6054 Dome Level Road in Tallahassee.
And who lived there with you?
Me, Pedro, and my 2 children,
What were your 2 children's names?
Julio and Jonathan.
And how old was Jonathan back in December of 2019?
He was 1.
And how about Julio?
He was about to be 4 or 5. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Does 3 sound right?
Yes.
So back in December of 2019, was your relationship with Mr. Ramirez Alvarado romantic?
Yes.
What did you call each other?
Husband and wife.
What did your children call him?
Papi.
Is that Spanish?
Yes, that's Spanish for dad.
Did Mr. Ramirez Alvarado help you take care of the children?
Yes, he did.
If you were to leave the home, would you leave them with him?
Yes.
Ms. Delgado, you were charged for your involvement in this case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you enter what's called an open plea?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Is that because you did not want my plea offer?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Because I was asking for the maximum sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
And at your open plea, do you remember who the judge was?
Yes, Stephen Everett.
So is he the one that chose the sentence that you got?
Yes, ma'am.
And at your sentencing, you had an attorney? Is that a yes? Okay. And she made argument on your behalf?
Yes, she did.
And then did I argue for my side?
Yes, you did.
Did I ask for you to get the maximum punishment in your case?
Yes, you did.
Have you ever been offered any deal by myself or anyone in my office for your case or this case?
No, ma'am.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Hmm.
I don't have any other questions for her.
Cross?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How many children have you had?
5.
And so we know about Jonathan and Julio. Where were your other children?
Where?
Who were your other children?
My other children are Carlos, Adriana, and Marvin.
And what's the status of Carlos, Adriana, and Marvin?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
What are the ages of Carlos, Adriana, and Marvin?
11, 10, and 9.
In that same order, Carlos, Adriana, and
Yes,
Marvin?
sir.
All right. They were not living with you at that home, were they?
No, sir.
And you stated that Mr. Ramirez Alvarado was your fiance and you called him husband.
Yes.
All right. Weren't you in fact at that time married to someone else?
Yes.
And in fact you filed for divorce of Rafael Antonio Delgado Escobar here in Leon County, didn't you?
Yes, but I also filed in a different state as well.
Okay. You were never married to Mr. Ramirez Alvarado legally.
No.
And when you say he was your fiance, do you have a wedding ring or a proposal ring?
I did. It's in my property.
Okay. He asked you to marry him,
Yes.
and you had plans to do that?
Yes.
When was that?
That was back before November of 2019.
Before November of 2019?
Yes.
And did you have a date set for?
The marriage? No, sir, not yet.
Okay.
We were planning most likely after the New Year's or after 2020 was what the deal was.
At the time that this happened, were you employed?
No.
All right. So, do you know if Mr. Pedro Alvarado Ramirez was employed?
Yes, he was.
What kind of work did he do?
Carpentry, which sometimes I would drive him to and from work and help him get supplies.
All right. So sometimes you helped him at work.
Yes.
Who would take care of the children when you helped them at work?
I would take the kids with us.
All right. How often would that happen? Was that an everyday thing or just sometimes?
It was sometimes.
The day of this incident was December 10th, 2019. Is that right?
Yes.
What did you do the day before?
We were in Panama City at a job that he was doing on drywall.
And were the kids with you at the time? And by kids, I mean JD and YM, the
Yes.
children in question here, not your other kids.
Yes.
That were with you.
Yes.
Do you remember what time you got back from Panama City?
It was around almost midnight-ish, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning.
All right. When you got home, what happened? What did you guys do?
I'm going to object to outside the scope of direct examination.
It is outside the scope, counsel.
All right. Reserve the right to call this witness as my own witness.
Absolutely. You redirect?
Yes, sir. Ms. Delgado, you mentioned that you were not employed. So who was the provider for your household?
It was both of us because I was also receiving Social Security benefits.
Who brought in most of the money?
Pedro did.
Okay. Would that be used to buy things for the kids?
Yes.
And no further questions, Judge?
Thank you. You may step down.
Judge, can I have a quick sidebar?
Excuse me?
Can I have a quick sidebar?
Absolutely.
The state did a motion to transport. I subpoenaed her for possible testimony tomorrow. I just want to make sure that she will be available for tomorrow and that there's not any problem. I didn't do a motion to transport, but I can between now and tomorrow if the court wishes. Can she get back today? Because I got her held today.
Do what?
I told them to hold her today.
No, we want her
Want her
tomorrow,
to
too.
Okay, we'll make it.
Okay, no problem.
No problem. Thank you.
Our next witness.
The state calls Ryan Kessling.
You face this lady and raise your right hand, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a seat, sir.
May I proceed, Judge?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Ryan Kessling,
And how do you spell your last name?
Kessling.
And where do you currently work?
Work for a company called Arthrex. It's an orthopedic device sales company.
Before you worked there, where did you work?
The most recent place before that, I worked at the Leon County Sheriff's Office
How long were you with the Leon County Sheriff's Office?
from October of 2016 until I think I resigned in the middle of February last year. So I left about 15 months ago.
Okay. And what was your position when you were with the Sheriff's Office?
I started as a patrol deputy. After that, I was a FTO, which is a field training officer. I trained new recruits. And then I went to a unit that was a street-level task force for like fugitives and narcotics. From there, I was a detective in the auto crimes task force dealing with vehicle burglaries, vehicle thefts. And then after that, before I resigned, I was in the violent crimes unit as a detective.
So back on December 10th, 2019, what was your position?
I was on the Spider unit at that time, was the street-level narcotics and fugitive apprehension task force.
Okay. Is that similar to being on patrol?
Somewhat, yeah. You're still driving a marked patrol car, but you're doing more focused on areas like high crime areas. You're not responding to a lot of calls for service. You're out doing kind of more directed patrols in areas that seem to be more of a high crime area.
Would you still respond to calls for service, though?
Yes.
And on December 10th, 2019, did you respond to a call for service at 6054 Dome Level Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you kind of describe from what you remember what happened or what the scene looked like when you got on scene?
Yes, ma'am. So I remember I was close by and they toned it out as a priority 1 call, which they put out a loud audible tone over the radio, which gets everybody's attention. And to the best of my memory, it was either like CPR in progress or child not breathing or something like that. And I wasn't very far away. So I went to the scene, and when I got there, I remember I believe there was 2 adults standing outside, and there was a woman and a male, and I think there was 1 child on the ground. I wasn't able to watch my body camera video, so I don't have access to that, but I believe there was 1 child laying on the ground, and then a smaller child was being held by the mother whenever we got there.
And what did you notice about the children?
The first thing I noticed was the mom seemed like she was panicked, and whenever, I think she handed me the child, or either that or the child was already on the ground. I don't remember. I just remember the first thing I remember is the first thing when I touched the child to check for a pulse or anything, that his skin was incredibly warm. I mean, alarmingly warm.
Okay.
Lodge an objection, Your Honor. It appears that the witness is reading something. He can certainly refresh his recollection, but he shouldn't be reading. I can't tell which he's doing.
Don't read. You can refresh your recollection.
Let me know if is what you have a copy of your report.
It's a copy of the report that I wrote, yes.
So if you need to look at it to refresh your memory, just let me know first before you look down. Does that make sense? Does that sound fair?
Yep.
Okay. So I think you had said that you noticed immediately that his skin was very hot.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember, so you mentioned there was a smaller child and a larger child.
Yes.
Do you remember like the color of their skin or anything else other than the temperature of their skin?
Not off the top of my head. Like I said, I wasn't able to watch the body camera video. It's been a few years since that happened.
Do you remember if either of them were breathing?
No, I don't believe so.
So when you see these children in this state, were you alone or were there other officers there?
There was other deputies there, and then once we started trying to do CPR and all that, it was either fire or it was paramedics or EMS showed up on scene. And typically whenever they would arrive on scene, they would take over life-saving measures.
Okay. So while you all were there, did you attempt life-saving measures on both of the children?
Just one.
Do you remember which one, the older or the younger one?
It would have been the younger one.
And that's what you did personally?
Yes.
Okay. Was there another deputy working on the older child?
Yes, I think it was, I'd have to look at my report to
Go ahead,
remember.
would that refresh your memory?
I remember who all was on our unit.
Sure.
I don't remember exactly who. I think it was Deputy Workman. Deputy Workman and Deputy Wagner.
Okay. Did you at any point enter the residence?
Yes.
Okay. What was the purpose of that?
So whenever something like that happens, we went inside the house to make sure that there was no one else inside the house. We didn't know if it, for the purpose of, we didn't know if there was like a gas leak or something. We wanted to make sure that there was nobody else in the house that needed to get out or for any reason just to clear the house for safety purposes.
Did you enter the back bedroom of the residence?
Yes.
When you entered the back bedroom of the residence, what do you remember about that back bedroom?
It was very warm in there, about like when you get in your car here in Florida in the summertime after it's been sitting in the sun. It was about like that temperature. I couldn't give you an exact temperature, but it was hot enough to where as soon as I walked in, I mean, being in there for less than a minute, I was already starting to sweat from being inside the room.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for him at this time.
Cross?
Just briefly, Jay. I take it, since you didn't testify to it, that you weren't able to take a temperature of that room. Is that correct?
I did not know.
All right. And did you see a heater in that room?
There was a space heater in the room.
Do you recall if that space heater was on when you went in?
I don't think it was. I think it was unplugged at that time.
Unplugged? And based on any investigation that you did, do you know who turned it on or who turned it off or who put it in that room?
Or how it was in there, that I don't know.
You don't know? Do you know who put the kids in that room?
I don't.
Do you know if the kids were confined in that room in some way?
I don't.
All right, nothing further. Thank you.
Redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thanks.
next witness.
State calls Alyssa Graham.
If you'll face this lady and raise your right hand, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Have a seat.
May I proceed, Judge?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Alyssa Graham. I was a paramedic with Leon County EMS for 5 years. I left in January.
Okay. And was your last name different then?
It was, yeah. I got married since
Okay.
this call.
Well, congratulations. What was your name back when you worked for Leon County EMS?
Kearse.
Okay, Kearse. And how was that spelled?
Kerce.
How long did you work for Leon County EMS?
About 5.5 years.
And what training or education did you have to reach the position that you achieved with Leon County EMS?
So you have to go through EMT school, which is a 4-semester course. It's a Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 schooling, where they teach you basic level life-saving measures. And then from there, we move on to a 2-year paramedic program, where we then go into more advanced skills that we can use on the ambulance. So in total, it was about 2.5 years.
And what were your job duties and responsibilities?
So as a paramedic, we are in charge on the truck. We work with an EMT. We work alongside an EMT. So we are in charge. We make all of the medical calls. We are in charge of the patient and the patient care, as well as the stocking of the truck, the maintenance of the truck, making sure that the ambulance is ready to go for every call. So we are, unfortunately, it's just me and another EMT in the field, so we work together.
Do you also work with the Tallahassee Fire Department?
We do. We work alongside them in the majority of our calls.
Do you remember back on December 10th of 2019 getting a call out to an address on Dome Level Road?
I do, yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what the scene looked like when you got there?
It was very hectic. When we were en route to the call, we kept getting updates on the CAD and on the radio about a possible infant that was unresponsive, and then for any healthcare provider, you know that is immediately a big deal. And then we got an update that there was possibly 2 kids. So when we arrived on scene, there was law enforcement everywhere. Fire department was already on scene. The sheriff's office had already removed the 2 kids from the house, and they were on the ground outside the home. TFD and the sheriff's office were tending to the kids when we arrived.
Did you ultimately attend to both of the children?
Yes. So initially when we arrived on scene, I grabbed the 1-year-old and the fire department grabbed the 3-year-old. And we ran back to the truck only because resources are so limited in the yard. And then we immediately headed back en route to the hospital because of the distance that we were from the hospital.
Is Dome Level Road quite a distance away from TMH?
It is, yeah. It's about 8 to 10 miles. And with traffic, it's about a 20 or 25 minute ride, even going with lights and sirens on.
When you saw the 1-year-old child, what did you notice about him upon observing him?
He showed no signs of life when I approached him. He was pale. His skin was mottled. I could tell that he was wet. At the time, I had no idea why, but he was soaking wet. He had a very water-filled, saggy diaper that was somewhat falling off, but he was completely unresponsive. His eyes were open. They were very cloudy. They showed no response to light or any kind of stimuli, and the baby had no pulse.
Okay. You mentioned a few things. You mentioned that his skin was mottled. What does that mean?
Modeling is something that the skin will do if it's exposed to extreme temperatures, such as either hot or cold. This is also something that can be done due to a decrease in perfusion or blood flow. So it's an early stage or it's an early sign of death. So shortly after the heart stops perfusing and the blood stops pumping, the skin will start to mottle.
So at this point, I think you had mentioned there were no signs of life on the 1-year-old.
Not on the 1-year-old.
Did you all still try to revive him?
Yes, we did. So we attempted the entire transport to the hospital with CPR and ventilations via a bag valve. So we were giving artificial ventilations with oxygen in hopes of trying to restart his heart.
Were you ever able to resuscitate him?
No, unfortunately we were not.
Based on what you were seeing, did you take a body temperature from him?
We did, yeah. So we took it in the truck because we noticed pretty immediately that his core temperature, so his extremities were fairly cool and pale, but his core temperature was very warm. And at the time, I thought that they were soaking wet with sweat. So we got the babies naked, that way we could see everything to make sure that we weren't missing anything. And we got a core body temperature via a rectal thermometer.
Okay. Do you remember what the 1-year-old's rectal temperature was?
His was 108 degrees Fahrenheit.
Is that a concerning temperature to you as a paramedic?
Yes.
Is that for anybody or for a baby especially?
That's for anybody. A normal body temperature is going to be anywhere between 97 and 98.6. Adults are able to go a little bit higher because we have such a larger surface area to spread the temperature. But with a baby of his size, that's very concerning because he's so little. He would heat up fairly quickly.
Okay, moving on. At some point, did you switch from the 1-year-old to the 3-year-old child?
Yeah, so as the lead provider on the ambulance, we have to go to the patient who shows the most promise, essentially, and unfortunately the 1-year-old was showing no signs of life. And when we got into the ambulance, his brother, the 3-year-old, we were able to detect a pulse on him. So I gave the 1-year-old to the paramedic firefighter who was in the ambulance with us and had him continue resuscitative measures, and I moved to the 3-year-old to give him the best chance.
Okay. What do you remember about your observations of the state of the 3-year-old, his body and things like that?
So he was also very wet. He was also very pale. He was not responsive when we arrived. It was not until we tried later measures that we got any kind of sign of life from him. He did have a t-shirt on that had been cut off when the law enforcement officers put an AED on his chest. And he as well had a very wet, saggy diaper.
Was his skin also warm?
Yes.
And similar to the 1-year-old child, because of the circumstances, did you all take his rectal temperature as well?
We did, yes.
Do you remember what his rectal temperature was?
His was 106.5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Lower than the 1-year-old's temperature?
It was lower, yes.
Is it still concerning to you?
It is very concerning, yes.
Eventually, were you able to get him, I guess, somewhat stabilized?
I wouldn't necessarily say stabilized. We were able to get a pulse back on him, so his heart did start beating again after compressions and ventilations were done on scene by law enforcement. So we were able to get him intubated, which is where we put a tube down his throat to help breathe for him, because unfortunately he was not able to do that on his own in the current state that we found him.
And eventually, did you all arrive at TMH?
We did, yeah. So there was 4 firefighters with us. We stabilized the 3-year-old en route to the hospital, and we did arrive at TMH shortly after we left Dome Level.
At that point, do you turn the children over to hospital staff?
We do, yeah. So we do what we can in the truck, and then when we arrive at the hospital, we took both kids to the trauma base, which allows for a larger amount of people. It's a bigger setting so that more things can happen at once. And each kid went in a trauma bay so that they could both be attended to. And then we left the hospital.
I don't have any other questions for her.
Cross?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning. I'm okay.
Thank you. I'm fine. My name is Edward Iturralde. I represent Mr. Pedro Ramirez Alvarado. Do you know him at all?
I do not, no,
You
sir.
didn't see him on the scene that you
No,
recall?
sir.
All right. You had mentioned that both the kids were very wet
Yes, sir.
and soggy diapers. Do you think that the wetness caused the soggy diapers, or do you know?
I don't know.
All right. If a patient is very overheated and still at home waiting for EMT, would it be wise to wet them down to cool them off?
If you knew that that was the cause of their issue, then yes.
If overheating was the cause of the issue?
Yes, sir.
Was it obvious that both children were overheated when you saw them?
Not initially, but once we took their rectal temperatures, yes.
Okay, but how about to touch?
They were warm to touch, yes.
All right. Do you recall if either child had any visible injuries, bruising, markings?
They did not, no.
They did not have any?
They did not.
And how many people were in the ambulance? You had both children?
I had both children, and then there was a fire department captain, a fire department lieutenant, and then 2 firefighters. So there was a total of 4 other people, and then myself and the 2 patients.
And the EMT as well, or is that one of the fire people?
So my EMT partner was driving in the
Gotcha.
front, yes.
Okay. All right. That's a lot of people.
It is, yes, sir.
Do you have a particularly large ambulance that fits all those people, or was it very cramped in there?
It was crowded, but at the time we needed all the extra resources that we could because we had 2 patients.
Sure. Is that normal that you would take 2 patients in one?
It is not, no, sir. Because of the circumstances, we were one of the only trucks available at the time, and we did not feel that we had the time to wait for another unit to come. So we took both patients in our truck and made sure that we had the resources to care for them.
Understandable. Were they, I assume that there's some kind of bed or gurney in your vehicle?
Yes, sir. There is a stretcher that the 3-year-old was laying on, and then we had laid the 1-year-old on his back on the bench seat.
Okay. I was about to ask you that, if they were both maybe sharing.
No, sir. They did share when we got to the hospital. We laid the 1-year-old onto the foot of the bed or the stretcher to get them both into the hospital. But for the transport, the 1-year-old was on the bench seat.
Very good, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Redirect.
I know you mentioned the scene at the trailer was pretty chaotic when you got there. Was it also pretty chaotic in the ambulance, in the transport?
It was, yes. With that many people in the ambulance, it's very loud. There's a lot going on, so it's not normally like that.
No further questions.
Thank you. You may step down.
She's free to go. State calls Caitlin Burnett.
You face this lady and raise your right hand, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Have a seat up here, please.
May I proceed, Judge?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I am Caitlin Burnett with Tallahassee Fire Department
And how long have you worked for the fire department?
since 2016.
And what is your position with the fire department?
I'm currently an engineer.
And what does that position entail?
I drive and operate.
Excuse me a minute. Can you hear her all right? Okay.
I drive and operate the engine.
And what sort of training and education did you have to go through to obtain your current position with the fire department?
I went to EMT school and fire school, Fire 1 and Fire 2.
Are you also a paramedic?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, what do your daily job duties entail?
Currently, I drive the fire truck, I pump, and I do rescue operations.
Do the rescue operations, does that include responding to calls for service?
Yes, ma'am.
So, do you all assist Leon County EMS?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you all assist the Leon County Sheriff's Office and Leon County EMS on December 10th, 2019?
Yes, ma'am.
That was for a call at Dome Level Road. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember what the scene looked like when you all got there?
I don't recall a lot of it.
Do you remember who the patients were?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you notice about the patients?
I only put hands on the 1-year-old. He was no pulse, not breathing when we arrived on scene. We did life-saving efforts on the child, and all signs pointed that he had already passed.
Did you notice anything about the temperature of his skin?
I don't recall.
Would it assist if I showed you a copy of the report?
Yes, ma'am.
May I approach, Judge?
Absolutely.
Just read it to yourself.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
that help refresh your memory?
Yes, ma'am.
Fair to say you have a lot of patients?
Tons of them.
Hard to remember all of them exactly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So after looking at a copy of the report, do you remember anything about his skin?
I remember he was a little stiff. His fingertips were cold, I remember that, and his core was warm. The child was damp.
I think you had mentioned that it appeared that he had already passed when you all had gotten there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you continue to attempt life-saving efforts on him?
Yes, ma'am.
Why is that if the consensus seemed to be that he had already passed?
We tried to give every child a chance. We provided CPR and tried to see if we could get a pulse back, and we were unable to.
No other questions for her?
Cross?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
Yeah. She's free to go.
All right.
State calls Timothy Vernon.
Come down here, sir. You face this lady and raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Have a seat up here, sir.
May I proceed?
Absolutely.
Good morning. Can you scoot a little closer to that microphone? I'm trying to make sure everybody can hear you. Can you introduce yourself to the jury?
My name's Tim Vernon. I'm an engineer with the Tallahassee Fire Department.
And how long have you worked for the Tallahassee Fire Department?
A little over 5.5 years.
And what sort of training and education did you have to do to get your current position with the Tallahassee Fire Department?
I had to go to EMT school and then fire school. So I'm nationally certified EMT and then nationally certified firefighter as well.
And what are your daily job duties in your current position?
My current position is an engineer, so I drive the fire trucks, operate pumps, ensure water's adequate for pumping a fire, assist in any medical calls that we get with whatever needs to be done, whether it be CPR or establishing, assisting with paramedic procedures, with setting up things before they actually do the procedure.
And were you working for Tallahassee Fire Department back on December 10th, 2019?
Yes.
Okay. What was your position then?
Firefighter.
And do you recall responding to a call out at Dome Level Road?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall anything about what the scene looked like when you all got there?
We were called for a possible carbon monoxide poisoning. We get there, it was very quick. I was on the truck, so we got there second. Our lieutenant and a couple of the firefighters from Engine 4 were already established patient care, and they were moving to the ambulance at that time, so I just followed the lieutenant into the ambulance to assist him.
Do you recall, were both of the patients children?
Yes.
Okay. Did you work on one or both of the children?
I worked primarily on the 3-year-old.
Okay. So the older child.
Yes, ma'am.
When you saw him, was there anything that stuck out to you that you observed about him?
He appeared damp and kind of wet, and then just kind of gasping at breath. So we began assisting with ventilations and assisting him to breathe.
Do you remember the temperature of his skin?
I do not.
Would seeing a copy of the report help refresh your memory?
Yes, ma'am, possibly.
May I approach the witness, Judge?
Absolutely.
Same report? Okay.
Just read it to yourself and I'll get that.
That'll help refresh your memory?
Yes, ma'am.
Fair to say you've had a lot of patients?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So after looking at that, do you remember anything about the temperature of his skin?
Yes, ma'am. He was warm and damp, and not. He was pale, but still damp. So
do you remember anything about the children's internal body temperatures?
I personally did not take the temperature. We did not obtain that until, I believe, at the hospital.
Okay.
So I did not know the temperature.
Were you all eventually able to resuscitate the 3-year-old child?
Did he didn't improve very much. It was pretty much he started to get a little bit better breathing, but we still assisted him all the way through until we transferred care to the hospital.
Okay, so you all had to work on him consistently, even transferring him from your ambulance to the hospital staff?
Yes,
ma'am. So would you say he still was not stable even when you guys got to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
When you all arrived at the hospital, were they both in critical condition?
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions for him?
Cross?
Very briefly.
Good morning, sir. My name is Edward Iturralde. I represent Pedro Ramirez Alvarado. Do you know him at all?
No, sir.
Do you remember him at the scene?
No, sir.
Did you ever go inside the house where this event occurred, where you took the children from?
I did not.
And you mentioned when you got there, people were already bringing them towards the vehicles?
When we pulled up, my lieutenant was near the ditch working on the patient, and the ambulance pulled up right behind us, or right next to us. He moved to the ambulance, and I followed him to assist him.
Okay, so either as you were getting out of the car, or maybe you were still in the car, they were already beginning the movement?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Nothing further.
Ready to direct?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
And he's free to go. State calls Paul Connell.
Face this lady and raise your right hand, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
Have a seat up here, sir.
May I proceed, Judge?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Deputy Paul Connell,
And where do you work?
Leon County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked there?
Just under 30 years.
And what is your current position?
Uniform patrol,
How long have you been on patrol?
about 23, 24 years.
What are your duties and responsibilities as a patrol officer?
Respond to call for services, traffic control, anything that comes through that radio for the most part.
And back on December 10th, 2019, did you hold that same position with the Leon County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you respond to a call for service at 6054 Dome Level Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that address here in Leon County?
Yes, it is.
When you arrived, can you kind of describe the scene for us?
When I got on scene, the Tallahassee Fire Department was already on scene. They had one child on the ground. They were attempting to resuscitate. Second child was being brought out of the house at that point. When I got out, Deputy Kessling and I immediately went to the trailer. We entered from the west side, or door on the west side. We had to make sure there was no additional patients inside. We initially were thinking it was carbon monoxide related, so we went in. He went to the left, and I went to the right, which is the south side of the trailer. There was 2 rooms. Opened up the first room, checked inside. There was nothing in there. Went to the room at the end of the hallway, opened up that door. Immediately upon opening up the door, there was a big flash of heat that knocked me back. I stepped forward a little bit, still thinking possibly carbon monoxide. Cleared the room from the doorway there, and backed out, secured the room, and exited the residence.
Okay. So that bedroom that you're talking about, is that in the back of the residence, I guess?
Yes, it's the farthest room on the south side of the residence.
And you mentioned that you opened the door, so when you got to it, the door was closed.
Yes.
And then you mentioned feeling a lot of heat. Did you see a heater in the room?
Yes, there was a space heater in the room in addition to a like a double stroller.
And after you cleared the room, I think you mentioned you closed the door behind you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I think you had said initially the thought was potentially carbon monoxide. Was that eventually ruled out?
Yes, fire came in, and I remember hearing from fire there was no detection of carbon monoxide.
I don't have any other questions for him.
Cross?
Yes, sir, thank you. Good morning, Deputy Connell. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Edward Iturralde, I don't know if we've met before. It's my client Pedro Ramirez Alvarado. Do you know him at all?
No, sir. I saw him on scene, but I do not.
You did see him on the scene. When you went inside the hot room, you said you saw a heater. Do you recall if the heater was on or off?
I do not recall.
Do you recall if it was plugged in or not?
No, sir.
All right. Do you know who put the heater in that room?
No, sir.
Do you know who put the children in that room?
No, sir.
Did you treat the children at all?
No, sir.
And did you speak to my client at all?
Yes, I did vaguely, just not about the case. I think we got him some water possibly or something like that, but
Okay.
he was just right there. I had a recruit at the time that was standing by with him.
All right. Very good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Redirect?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
He's free to go.
Thank you.
State calls Judith Cook.
If you'll face this lady and raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Have a seat up here, ma'am.
May I proceed, Judge?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Deputy Cook. I'm with the Leon County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you worked for the Leon County Sheriff's Office?
I've been at the Sheriff's Office for a little over 10 years. Did uniform patrol for 9 years, and now I'm with the Homeless Outreach Street Team.
Back on December 10th, 2019, what was your position with the Sheriff's Office?
I was on uniform patrol.
And what are your duties and responsibilities as a uniform patrol officer?
Answer calls for service, and anything that needs to be done to keep the community safe.
Do you recall on that date responding to a call at 6054 Dome Level Road?
Yes.
Can you describe the scene for us when you arrived?
When I arrived, several of our deputies were attending to two children that were unresponsive on the ground outside, and actually the ambulance was picking them up and loading them into to take them to the hospital.
Did you observe Brittany Delgado on scene?
Yes.
Did you also observe this defendant, Mr. Ramirez Alvarado, on scene?
Yes.
Did both Ms. Delgado and Mr. Ramirez Alvarado provide written statements on the scene?
Yes.
Did you impound both of those into evidence at LCSO?
Yeah, I put them into records.
Okay. So you would have obtained them from the scene and taken
Yes.
them to records? Okay. Judge, may I approach the witness?
Sure.
Does the state 7?
So, is that true?
No. May I approach it?
Absolutely.
And Deputy Cook, do you recognize that, the first page?
Yes.
And what is that?
This is the statement written by the defendant.
Mr. Alvarado? Does it have his name on it?
Yes.
Does it have the date of the incident on it?
Yes.
Okay. Does it have the address on it?
Yes.
Was Mr. Alvarado asked to provide this statement?
Yes.
Did he request to write it in Spanish?
If I recall correctly, Brittany said that he doesn't speak very well English, so we said that if he wanted to write it in Spanish, if that made it easier, he could.
And would he have been taken to like a patrol car to write this? Like on the hood?
Yes.
Okay. Once the statement was written, a law enforcement officer signs it?
Yes.
Okay. You're not the one that signed this statement?
No.
Okay. Deputy Andrade signed the statement?
Yes,
Okay. Was he also present on scene?
yes,
But you are the one who obtained this statement?
yes.
Okay. And is it the same or substantially the same as when you last saw it?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, state would ask to move State 7 into evidence.
Counsel?
Just a standing objection.
Same ruling. It's received as evidence. Exhibit 7.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I retrieve it from the witness?
Sure.
Deputy, did you also take Mr. Ramirez Alvarado from the scene to the sheriff's office to be interviewed?
Yes.
Are you the one that interviewed him?
No.
Would that have been the lead detective?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions for her.
Cross?
Yes, sir, thank you. Good morning, Deputy.
Good morning.
My name is Edward Iturralde. I represent Pedro Agustin Ramirez Alvarado. Did you state that you took the statements of both Brittany and Pedro?
I put them both into records at the sheriff's office.
All right. Were you the one that handed them the forms as well?
I handed Brittany hers, and his was provided by Deputy Andrade.
Okay. Where were they when they prepared these statements?
He was on a hood of one patrol vehicle, and she was on another side of the yard.
Okay. Were they told beforehand that we're going to ask you to write a statement?
We asked if they would be willing to provide a statement.
Okay.
And both said they would.
All right. And when you made that request, how much time between the request and them actually filling out the document?
I'm unsure. It wasn't very long.
A few minutes at least?
Probably.
And at that point, were they separated or together?
They were separated.
When you were asked the question, would you be willing to make a statement they were together or separate?
I believe they were together when they were asked if they were willing to write a statement.
All right. And then at some point between then and actually writing the statement, they were separated?
Right.
And that could have been a few minutes?
Potentially.
Okay. Did you ever go inside the house?
I briefly stepped inside the house, but it was just to retrieve crime scene tape.
Okay. Do you know anything about who turned on the heater in that house?
I don't know who turned. No, sir. I don't know who turned on the heater.
And do you know who put the kids in the room?
I do not.
All right. Thank you.
Ready to write?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down.
She's free to go. I think now might be a good time for a comfort break, Judge.
I think we're about ready for a break, don't you? Let's get back at about 10 of. There's approximately 42 clocks in this building. They all say something different. That's our clock. We'll get back at 10 of, all right? During the break, please do not discuss the case among yourselves or allow anyone to discuss it in your presence. You go with the bailiff. Very good. Okay. Get back at 10 of. Ready for the jury?
I'm just testing this to make sure it works before my next witness, Judge, and it looks like it does. Yep. Is yours on? Okay.
Do you need a screen now?
No, because they have the screens in the box. Thank you, though. I think we are ready.
All right, let's bring them on. What?
It's so cold.
That way they don't ask you as many questions.
All rise for the jury.
Please. Y'all haven't discussed the case among yourselves, and no one's discussed it in your presence. Good. Call your next witness.
The state calls Michael Godwin.
Your face this lady and raise your right hand, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat up here, sir.
May I proceed, Judge?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Michael Godwin. Godwin.
And you used to work for the Leon County Sheriff's Office, is that
Yes, I did.
recently retired?
Yes, I am.
How long did you work for the Sheriff's Office?
21 years.
What was your position with the Sheriff's Office?
Various positions throughout those 21 years, and starting at the detention facility for about 3.5 years, then went to patrol, served on patrol for several years, then went to the crime scene unit in 2014. Upon leaving the crime scene unit after about 8 years, I came up to the courthouse as a bailiff and then transport unit.
And your role as it relates to this case on December 10th, 2019, what was your position with the Sheriff's Office then?
I was a crime scene detective.
And what are your principal responsibilities and duties as a crime scene detective?
Crime scene detectives go to scenes and document via photography and video if necessary, and collect evidence that may be pertaining to that scene.
Did you do that for the residents in this case at 6054 Dome Level Road?
Yes, I did.
When you first arrive on the scene, how do you go from start to finish? Walk us through like your process of a general scene.
Sure. When I arrive on scene, the first thing I do is I get a briefing from a patrol deputy or another detective or a supervisor, but someone who was on that scene prior to me. I get a briefing. Once I get that briefing, and let me say that briefing is plain, no facts associated, just what they saw, only those facts. I get that briefing, and once I do that, I start my processing. I utilize, at this instance, we used a digital camera, a DSLR, which is a Nikon V7500, and we used that to document the scene. We document overalls, which is a wide area of the scene. That means the yard, the street, the house, and wide angle. Once we start doing that, we start moving to our mid-range so we get a little bit closer, and then we do our close-ups of the property and the house. We typically do a 360-degree documentation of the property. Once we do that, we move inside and repeat that process. Before we process anything, we document the inside with overall photographs or or videos, and then we do our mid-ranges and close-ups of anything that we see.
And what type of home was this that you documented on December 10th?
It's a single-wide mobile home.
And how many bedrooms were there?
There were 3 bedrooms in the residence.
How many bathrooms?
1.
When you first walk into the house, what do you walk into?
They utilize the back door of the residence versus the front door of the residence. So when you walk in that back door, the first thing you see is like a small laundry area and a bathroom straight ahead.
And then, I guess, can you walk us, like, just briefly through the layout of the home?
Sure. When you enter the back door or the egress point, once you walk in and you see a bathroom straight ahead, to the right of that bathroom is what would be considered the master bedroom. It's a single bedroom. It's a small hallway there. When you take a left down that hallway, you'll walk into the kitchen area, small eat-in kitchen / living room area. Once you continue walking to your left, there's another hallway. That hallway goes down. There's a bedroom on the right and a bedroom straight ahead.
Did this home have central heat and air, or did it have like separate units?
So I didn't observe a central heat and air. Now whether it originally had one or ever did have one, I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that. What I did notice is various window air conditioning units throughout the house.
Was there one in the master bedroom?
There was one in the master bedroom.
And was that functional?
It was functional.
Was there also one in the kitchen / living room area?
Yes, there was.
Was that one also functional?
I believe that one was as well.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Sure.
This is State's Composite 1.
Sorry for the delay, no objection.
Mayor First Witness?
Mm-hmm.
Detective, take a look at those and let me know if you recognize them.
Okay.
And do you recognize those?
I do.
How do you recognize them?
These are the photographs that I took on scene.
Okay. Do they fairly and accurately represent the scene as you saw it on that day?
They did.
Judge, at this time, the state would ask to move state's composite 1A through EE into evidence.
Counsel?
A through E?
EE.
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 It's on the thing.
Okay. No objection to the photos.
So received.
May I publish?
Absolutely.
And may I first witness?
Sure.
Your Honor, inquire if all the jurors can see the photograph.
Can you all see the photos clearly? Good.
Thank you, Your Honor. Starting with state's 1A, Detective, what does this photograph depict?
This represents the photograph of the back side of the residence that's used as an entrance exit.
States 1B. What is, can you see this all right? I forgot to ask you.
I can.
Okay, what does this one show?
This would be just a different corner of the residence.
States 1C.
Close, mid-range of the back door, main entrance.
States 1D.
This would be entering the residence and looking to the left towards the dining living room area.
States 1E. What does this photo depict?
It's the living room area of the residence.
States 1F.
This is the living room living room area of the residence, also with a photo of the what would normally be the front door of the residence.
Is the right side of the photograph, is that the beginning of the kitchen?
That would be part of the kitchen area, yes.
States 1G.
Kitchen area.
And the door that we see on the right side of the photograph, is that the back door that you referred to, or is that the front door?
That would be the back door that I referred to.
Do you recall where in the living room area the air conditioner unit was?
So where the door is, there's a purple wall coming down to the right. If you follow that wall down more, the AC would be on that, and a window in that wall. I believe there's a small either entertainment center of some type next to it. It's more visible in the photograph where I'm coming in the door and looking to the left.
States 1H.
Kitchen. More of a, what I refer to as our mid-range photos.
States 1I. Is this a photo of that air conditioner unit in the living room?
Yes, it is.
And I think you had mentioned before, but was this air conditioner unit operational?
It was.
So this number that we see, that's 74. Is that the temperature it was set to?
Yes, that's what was displayed on the display.
States 1J.
That's the bathroom of the residence.
States 1K.
What we refer to as the master bedroom.
States 1L.
Again, that's the master bedroom with the closet in the photograph.
States 1M.
This would be the area as soon as you come into the back door that's straight ahead that would normally house a washer and dryer.
Is this, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is this, actually, is it a close-up photo of the closet? When you look at them together, does that help?
Yes, it does. I see the dresser now.
It's kind of hard to tell when they're all separated.
It does, but yes, that is the master closet.
Does it look similar to the area when you first come in the back
It does,
door?
very much so, yes.
State 1N.
That would be a passport.
Was this Mr. Ramirez Alvarado's passport?
Possibly without looking on the inside, but I would assume.
Did Miss Delgado have a passport that you were aware of?
Not that I recall.
And I'm not sure if I stated, but that was States 1N for the record. States 1O. And what is this?
It is it looks like some sort of a statement from insurance.
Is it part of your job, not as a crime scene detective, not only to take photographs, but also to collect various items of evidence?
Correct.
Do you routinely collect documentary evidence?
Absolutely, we do.
And does this item have Mr. Ramirez Alvarado's name on it?
It does.
Does it have the address of the home as well?
Yes, it does.
States 1P.
This would be the hallway looking, I guess that would be south from the living room area, where you have one bedroom on the right and then one bedroom straight ahead.
When you took these photos, I noticed that the doors are closed. Did you close them, or were they closed when you arrived?
They are as they were when I arrived. I don't touch anything on scene until it's documented.
States 1Q.
Just a close-up of the doorknob area.
And both of these two doors that we see in States 1P, were they both bedrooms?
They were both bedrooms.
Did you notice anything about the locks on both of those bedroom doors?
Yes, absolutely. The locks on the door handles were actually reversed, so they were on the outside, not the inside of the door.
So the doors would lock from the outside, not the inside?
Correct.
So if someone were on the inside of the room and the door was locked, they would need a key to get out?
That's correct.
States 1R.
That would be the bedroom that is on the right of the hallway that we first come to.
States 1S. Is this another photo of that same bedroom?
It is.
Just kind of do a panoramic of every room?
That's correct. We try to do a 360, or at least an angle of the whole room.
States 1T. Would this be the interior of the doorknob
Yes.
of the same bedroom we just looked at?
Yes.
States 1U.
That is the door to the bedroom at the end of the hallway.
States 1V.
Again, it's a photograph of the doorknob with a lock on the exterior of that room door.
States 1W.
Photograph of the room straight ahead as I enter the room through the front door, or through that door.
States 1X.
The window facing south in that bedroom, which is right above an air conditioning unit.
Was that air conditioning unit on in the room?
It was not on.
States 1Y.
Photograph of one of the walls in that bedroom.
Would that be the wall to the right when you're looking in?
It would be the wall to the right or to the west.
States 1Z.
Photograph of a stroller in the middle of the room.
And then what is this black object we see on the left side of the photograph?
It's a heater.
States 1AA.
This would be, what I'm doing is documenting the various items that are on the floor. In this case, there was a diaper there. It was undone as if it was used. I can't tell if it was used or not. And a bottle.
States 1BB.
A blanket in the corner of the same room.
States 1CC.
This is trash that was, or debris that was on the floor of that room.
Various like papers and receipts, things like that.
Yes, towels, little bags, such and so forth.
States 1DD.
That is a folded up travel playpen.
And states 1EE.
And that is the black space heater that was in the previous photograph that we documented.
Does this photograph depict how the space heater looked when you entered the room?
That is exactly how it sat as I walked in the room.
Okay. So, the levels that the heater was turned to, did you adjust those, or was that how you found it?
That was how I found it.
Okay. So this little red switch that we see here in the center is set to 2 instead of 1.
Correct.
And then this gray dial is set almost to the maximum setting.
Second to the highest setting, yes.
Do you know how, or approximately how long after, well, you weren't one of the first responding officers to the scene.
No, I was not.
Okay. Is crime scene routinely called out a ways after the scene has kind of been cleared?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how long after the initial call, or when deputies initially responded, that you responded to the scene?
I don't recall that.
routinely, how long would it take for you to get a call out and respond to a scene as a crime scene detective?
So that can actually vary. Sometimes we can be called as soon as they notice that there is a severe enough crime or incident has occurred for us to be notified. And sometimes the deputies and the supervisors will start working their scene and then stumble upon something that says, oh, wait, we need to call crime scene out. So it can vary from 5 or 10 minutes to a couple of hours before we're notified.
But you don't remember how long it would have been on this date?
No, I don't recall.
Did you, as part of your duties in this case, did you also take some temperature readings?
I did.
Okay. The specific readings that you took, were they of the room where the heater was located?
Yes, they were.
Okay. So did you take readings of just the air temperature of the room while you were inside of it?
So we took readings of walls and ceilings because we use a laser thermometer, and it doesn't shoot just air. It has to have something to hit.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you recall the readings that you obtained from the bedroom, the back bedroom of the home with the heater in it?
The exact readings I don't want to misannounce. I would need to refer to either my report or something to
Would seeing a copy of your report help refresh your memory?
Absolutely, it would.
May I approach the witness, Judge?
Sure.
Just read it to yourself.
That help refresh your memory?
Yes.
Do you remember the readings of the various walls of the room?
Yes, they range between 88 to 89 degrees.
Did you also take temperature readings from the heater?
Yes, we did.
And do you recall those off the top of your head, or would you need to?
Yeah, I would need to refer, I'm sorry.
Would your report refresh your memory?
Yes, it would.
Fair to say you've been to a lot of crime scenes?
I've been to a lot, and this one was quite a time ago.
Right. May I approach the witness, Judge?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
That help refresh your memory?
It did.
Okay. So initially, when the heater was powered off, do you remember the approximate temperature?
Approximately 89 degrees.
Okay. And then did you power the heater on?
We did.
Okay. Do you recall the highest temperature that you got from the heater after it had been powered on for a few minutes?
Yeah, that was approximately 151 degrees.
I don't have any other questions for him at this time.
Ross?
Yes, sir. Can I get the photographs that were introduced?
Absolutely.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm Ed Giraldi. I represent Pedro Ramirez Alvarado. Just a few questions for you. Did you also take DNA samples when you went there as part of your crime scene?
I would have to refer to my report, but I don't think I did unless I took them off the heater.
Okay. Do you recall doing a deposition back on April 12th, 2022?
I remember a deposition being taken.
All right, and would looking at that refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Find the page to direct you to it so you don't have to read everything. Direct your attention to April 10th. Take your time. When you're done reading, let me know.
Okay.
All right. I also have a copy of your report that may also refresh your recollection.
Sure.
See that?
I am, thank you. Okay.
All right. So did you conduct a DNA or obtain a DNA sample?
I did collect, I collected a sample from the heater.
All right. Was it one or several samples from the heater?
There was more than one.
Okay. Do you know if those were ever compared to anyone or anything?
No, that is not something that I do. That is something that the actual violent crimes detectives coordinates with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Okay, and they wouldn't let you know whether that had happened or not, necessarily?
Not necessarily.
All right. When you were doing the testing of the heater, did you said that with it off, you took a temperature reading, and then you said you got a reading, a high of 151. Did you have other readings at timed intervals?
Yes, and I don't recall those exact time intervals. I know there was like a 30-second one, and then one a little longer and one a little further. But I did have different temperatures increasing in heat.
Okay. You don't recall how long after turning the heater on till it got to 150 or 151?
My best recollection, it was approximately a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Okay. We're talking minutes, not hours.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. In the photographs that you took, it seemed like there were 3 bedrooms, you testified?
Yes, sir.
And in 2 of those bedrooms, there were mattresses. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there were 2 portable playpens as well, one in 2 of the back bedrooms. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. You had mentioned that they were using the back entrance as the main entrance. How did you determine which is the back and which is the front entrance?
Just from my experience, most residences, the main or primary entrance or the front entrance of the house is into the living area of the house and not a back door, or not a door that leads straight into a back hallway with a closet and a laundry area.
Okay.
And that door was obviously used more than the other one from the looks of it.
How did you determine that it was used more than the other one?
Just how well the traffic pattern was worn.
Okay. And did you notice that there was food available for the family to eat at the residence?
There was some food at the residence.
Did you notice that there were cleaning supplies at the residence?
I didn't really pay attention to cleaning supplies. If they were in my photographs.
Okay. And the AC unit in the picture that has the 74 on it, was that on when you arrived, or did you turn it on?
Everything is as is when I arrived.
Okay. Was on. Did you notice any child locks in the house?
I noticed the, for lack of a better term, sleeves or covers that go over a doorknob that you have to kind of squeeze to turn.
And what doors were those on?
There was one, I recall, on the inside of the, what would be the back door, I believe. Don't recall where the other one was.
Let me show you what's been marked, State's Exhibit 1J for identification. Do you see cleaning supplies? May I approach, sir?
Yeah.
Do you see cleaning supplies in this photograph?
Kind of a little closer, thanks. I do.
You mentioned there were other air conditioners in the house. You said that this one was on, the back bedroom, the hot room was not. Were any of the other ACs on?
I don't recall if the master bedroom AC was on or not.
All right. Do you recall if there was a cat in the house?
I did not see a cat in the house. I saw evidence of a cat in the house.
Let me direct your attention to States 1D. May I approach again?
Absolutely.
Do you see evidence of a cat in that photograph?
If you're talking about what's in the crate, I can't see what's in the crate that well. There may be a cat in there.
Okay, so if there's an animal crate.
There's an animal crate.
And there's a plate for animal food in front of that.
Yes.
And there's something brown inside there that might be a cat.
There is.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry for my fumbling, but there's one or two other things that I wanted to ask you about. Oh, May I, Judge?
Absolutely.
One each. Direct your attention to the cabinet. Do you see what appears to be a child lock on one of those cabinets?
If that's what that is, I'm not familiar with those child locks, but if that's what it is, sure, that's a child lock.
There's, let's describe it, I guess, for the record. What do you see on the cabinet?
Well, it's got a, looks like a U-shaped, and it kind of looks like a long plastic padlock, basically, is what it looks like.
All right, and that's where?
It is on an open cabinet door.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
I am trying to find the photograph of the main entrance from the inside, and I am just not finding it. I don't know if the photos are sticking together. Well, let me ask you while I continue to search.
Sure.
Do you recall the photograph that I'm talking about, the interior of the main entrance door?
Sure.
Do you recall if that had an additional lock high on top of the door?
Not without looking at the photograph, but I would
Fair
be
enough.
happy. I would be happy to help you find that photograph if you'd like.
Well, I may just take you up on that. There we go. Fine. All right. May I, Judge? Which door would you say that was?
That would be the door leading out to the front of the residence, what I would consider the front of the residence, but it's in the living room.
Okay. But it's one of the ones that lead you to the outside.
Correct.
And do you see a lock on the top?
I see a bolt latch, yes.
A bolt latch? Thank you. May I collect that?
Sure.
Hmm?
You also talked about the bedroom doors having the lock portion on the outside, and that would allow someone to lock someone in a room, is what your testimony was, right?
It's not my testimony that it would allow them to do that. That is a possibility, but the reason they turn the locks out or not, I don't know.
Correct. It's also a possibility that it would prevent children from locking themselves in a room, is it not?
Sure, that could be a possibility.
All right. I think I'm done. If I could consult with my client one moment.
Sure.
No further questions.
Cross?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
And he's free to go.
Counsel, come up.
I did.
Judge, because we were moving a little quicker than anticipated, I did have Dr. Flanagan come already, so she is already here. My next witness, I only have to introduce 2 photos through, so he's very short. And then I have Dr. Flanagan. I would prefer, I don't think she's going to take that long, because I only have a couple photos through her, but I would, since I made her come, would appreciate to do her before we take our lunch break.
Okay, you want to do how many before lunch?
Just 2. And the first one is extremely short. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Judge. You have a problem with that?
The state calls Justin Woodall.
If you'll face this lady and raise your right hand, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a seat up here, sir.
May I proceed, Judge?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Absolutely. My name is Justin Woodall.
And where do you work?
I am a lieutenant at Leon County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked for the Leon County Sheriff's Office?
I've been at the Sheriff's Office since 2012.
Back on December 10th of 2019, what was your position with the Leon County Sheriff's Office?
I was a crime scene detective.
Okay. And what are your duties and responsibilities as a crime scene detective?
So as a crime scene detective, we respond to different kinds of scenes. They can vary from auto burglaries all the way to homicides. Our job when we get there is to document the conditions as we found them, and then later on during the investigation identify and collect any evidence that we find.
Does that include taking photographs?
It does.
On December 10th, 2019, did you respond to the Tallahassee Memorial Hospital?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you take a photograph of the 3-year-old child at the time named Julio?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Judge, may I approach the witness?
Sure.
This is states 2A and B. Do you recognize those?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Are those some of the photographs you took of Julio on that day?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Do they fairly and accurately represent his condition as you observed it on that day?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
Judge, at this time, state would ask to move states 2A and B into evidence.
No objection, sir.
So received.
May I publish?
Absolutely.
Can you see this photograph all right?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
This is states 2A. What does this photograph show?
This is in the pediatric intensive care unit. This was Julio Ramos. He's there in the bed as I found him when I arrived that day.
And then states 2B. Is this just a closer up photograph?
Yes, ma'am, it's a top-down photo.
I don't have any other questions for him.
Cross.
Very briefly, did you do any other investigation or work on this case other than the photographs you took of the child at the hospital?
No, sir, I did not.
You never went to the home?
No, sir.
So you have no idea who put the heater in the room or who put the children in the room?
No, sir, I don't.
All right, thank you.
You ready?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you, sir.
He's free to go. The state will call Dr. Lisa Flanagan.
You'll face this lady and raise your right hand, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Have a seat up here, please.
May I proceed?
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Dr. Lisa Flanagan. That's Flanagan.
And where do you work?
I'm just retired actually this week, but I work for that at the medical examiner's office in this district.
And how long did you work for the medical examiner's office?
Here in Tallahassee for 19 years, and before that I worked at a medical examiner's office for 10 years.
And can you please tell us your educational background?
Yes, I received my undergraduate degree from FSU. I then attended the University of Florida College of Medicine, and I received my MD degree in 1990. And after that, I completed a 5-year residency program in pathology at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and that included a 1-year fellowship position in forensic pathology, which is my specialty. And after that, I worked for 5 years as a medical examiner in Broward County, and then for 5 years, just under 5 years, up in Palm Beach County.
And that was before coming here to the Second Judicial Circuit?
Yes, I came here in 2005.
You mentioned forensic pathology. What is forensic pathology?
Forensic pathology is a subspecialty of pathology. So a pathologist is a medical doctor, and we're trained to examine tissues. So if any time a biopsy is taken, it's a pathologist that looks at that tissue under the microscope. We're also involved with the labs in the hospital, like the microbiology and hematology. And it also includes autopsy pathology. So forensic pathology is when we specialize in the performing of autopsies that have medical legal significance.
And what is an autopsy?
An autopsy is part of a death investigation, and it's the part where we examine the deceased individual's body.
Approximately how many autopsies have you conducted?
At this point, over 5,000.
And have you testified in court previously?
Yes, I have.
And have you been allowed to give your opinion?
Yes, I have.
Judge, at this time, state would tender the witness.
Just one broad wire question, if I could. You mentioned you graduated from FSU undergraduate. What was your undergraduate degree?
Biology.
Biology. Thank you, ma'am.
So receives as forensic pathologist expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Flanagan, did you conduct an autopsy in this case of a child, Jonathan Soto Delgado?
Yes, I did.
And what was the autopsy date? December 11th, 2019?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you explain for the jury the process that you go through when conducting an autopsy?
Well, as I said, the autopsy is part of the death investigation, so we're notified of the death and we take jurisdiction for certain cases as outlined in the law. We gather initial information about what we need to be looking for at the autopsy. When we actually perform the autopsy, everything's documented. So we take photographs, everything's looked at on the outside of the body, and then the body's opened up and all of the organs are looked at internally, and we're looking for injuries or any diseases the person may have, and then ultimately a report is generated as to the findings.
Do you also document the autopsy with photographs?
Yes, photographs are taken throughout.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Absolutely.
This is state's composite 4A through F. Do you recognize those, Dr. Flanagan?
Yes, I did.
Are those some of the photos that were taken during the autopsy of Jonathan?
Yes, they are.
And do they accurately depict how you saw him on that day?
Yes, they do.
Judge, at this time, state would ask to move 4A through F into evidence.
Over our standing objection.
So received in evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I publish?
Absolutely.
Starting with states 4A. Doctor, can you see that all right?
Yes, I can.
And what is this photograph depicting?
This is one of the initial photographs, and it was taken before we did anything or removed anything from the body, just to show how he was when we received him.
So some of the things that we see on his body, would that be like evidence of medical intervention?
Yes, he had been intubated with a breathing tube, and there's a blood pressure cuff on his arm, and defibrillator pads and EKG leads on his body.
States 4B. What does this photograph show?
This is another initial photograph just showing the back of his body where the defibrillator pad's been placed, and then there was some dirt on his back.
States 4C.
This is what we call an identification photograph, so it just has a photo full on of his face with the case number.
And this is your case number at the medical examiner's office, which is different from like the LCSO case number.
Yes, that's correct.
States 4D. And what is this photograph showing?
This was something that was on his skin on the left side of his neck, and it initially was concerning for a possible injury, and I don't think it was an injury. I think it was just something how the skin dried out in that area. Like, I think it was where the crease was of his neck, that it was skin against skin, and it dried out and just caused that artifact look on his skin, but it was not an injury.
Would this have occurred before he died or after?
I think it was like peri-mortem is what I called it, so it was around the time of death.
States 4E.
This is a photograph showing his lower back, and there was a similar area where the skin was just a little firm and dried, like something had been pressed up against it around the time of death. But again, I didn't find any significant injuries on his body.
States 4F. What does this photograph show?
This is a photograph that's showing his thymus and the surface of his heart where there were these little pinpoint areas of hemorrhage that we call petechiae.
And are those petechiae that you observed, are they significant to your determination of his cause of death?
No, they're a non-specific finding. They don't point us to any specific cause of death.
What causes that type of petechiae in that area of the body?
It's usually post-mortem or peri-mortem, where those blood vessels just under pressure and bleeded there in that area.
Is part of your autopsy looking at the internal organs as well as the external body?
Yes.
Do you routinely look inside of the stomach?
Yes, I do.
In this child's stomach, was there any food or liquid present?
No, I think I described there was just a sparse amount of mucus, which is normal, but there was no food or fluid.
Is part of your job as a pathologist in doing the autopsy to determine a cause of death for the person?
Yes, okay. That's part of the death investigation. We're trying to determine the cause and manner of death, and that's what we put on the death certificate for the individual.
And what did you determine the cause of death to be for this child?
I ruled the cause of death is hyperthermia.
And what is hyperthermia?
The body temperature was elevated to such a degree that it led to the individual's death.
So the human body can only sustain a certain temperature before it essentially shuts down. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
And based on your training and experience, is that what happened to this child?
Yes, he had been seen by EMS and the emergency room, and they obtained a rectal temperature.
And based on that rectal temperature, as well as everything else that you conducted in your autopsy, that was your determination?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you also mentioned a manner of death. What was your determination as to the manner of death in this case?
I ruled the manner of death is homicide.
And why is that?
Well, the choices that we have for the manner of death is natural, accident, suicide, homicide, or undetermined. And just the manner of death is based more on the circumstances of how the death came about.
No further questions for her?
Cross.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Morning, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
My name is Edward Iturralde. I represent Pedro Ramirez Alvarado. I was taking notes and I got lost. You said that there's several manners of death: a natural, homicide, accident,
Suicide.
suicide,
And undetermined.
and question mark, unknown. How do you decide which one of those to choose?
Like I said, it's based on the autopsy findings, but also on the circumstances. So an individual may die from a gunshot wound to the head, but based on the investigative information of what happened, we can deem that either a suicide or accident or a homicide.
So it's not just what happens in your autopsy room, it's also information you get from other people, specifically investigators, police officers, etc. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And I do have a copy of your report. It says in attendance, Sergeant Barrow, Detective Brock, and Detective Godwin. Is that normal for police officers to be present at the time of autopsies?
Yes, it is.
Discussing the injuries that you mentioned to the neck and to the lower back, is that, you said that that was not an injury actually, that it was some kind of pressure mark?
It's basically an artifact of the skin of what happened, that something was up against the skin and that area got a little darker and firm.
Could it have been something that happened in the process of different people trying to give life-saving measures, CPR, mouth-to-mouth? I'm drawing a blank. What do you call it when you shock a body?
I don't think it was from that, just because of the location, the lower back, and then it was just on one side of the neck.
All right. And the hyperthermia, you mentioned it's an overheating of the body, essentially, to the point where it cannot sustain life. How do you arrive at that particular determination? What, in this case, what evidence did you have? You mentioned the rectal temperature. Was there anything else that made you think it was hyperthermia?
Well, there's nothing that I would see as far as the body itself. So we rely on information from law enforcement, and also we rely on medical records. And so I had access to the medical records and what the rectal temperature was, which was markedly elevated.
All right. What, if anything, did you learn from police officers that led you to think it was a homicide by hyperthermia? Excuse me.
Just the circumstances of how the child was found and that the death resulted from the actions of other individuals.
Right.
He was too young to do anything to himself.
All right. When you say, in your opinion, it was a homicide, you're not stating who you think committed the homicide. That's somebody else's job.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. In your report, you stated that the body is that of a well-developed and adequately nourished male. You remember that? You have a copy of your report there?
Yes, I have a copy.
All right. So is that an accurate quote?
Yes.
All right. So the child, in your opinion, was not malnourished.
No, he was a little slender, but he did not look malnourished, and I did not see any other injuries or anything abnormal on his body.
And no signs of any long-term abuse, like sometimes you might see broken bones in an abused child or old burn marks or stuff like that. You didn't see any of that?
I did not see any of that.
The state asked you about the contents of his stomach, and you said it was empty. About how long after eating something would the body get rid of it such that you wouldn't find something on an autopsy?
It depends on the status of the individual, also how much they ate, and so just in a broad term, we say within a few hours the stomach should be empty after a normal meal.
Okay.
Maybe shorter than that for children, depending on if they're just drinking milk or whatever they ate, which was soft.
All right. So if a child had breakfast in the morning and then this event happened in the afternoon where the ambulances came and took them to the hospital, it would not be inconsistent with you finding nothing in the stomach, correct?
If it had been a long enough period for anything in the stomach to have moved through, yes, then I would not see it in the stomach.
And that's why I'm saying sometime between breakfast and lunch, you might empty your stomach.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And We touched upon it, but one of your comments was on the musculoskeletal system, no fractures or other bony abnormalities identified, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the scalp had no contusions. And when you say contusions, what do you mean?
Like bruises or areas of hemorrhage.
All right, so no injuries to the head that you could see.
That's correct, no injuries.
All right. I see that you also conducted a list of tests to determine if he had just about any kind of alcohol, drugs of all kinds. Is that fair? Is that something your office did?
Yes, as part of an autopsy, we will collect specimens such as blood, urine if it's available, and that is sent for toxicology testing, and that's routinely done when we do an autopsy. And in his case, no drugs were detected in his system.
No drugs of any kind, no alcohol, nothing like that?
Nothing like that.
Nothing further from this witness. Thank you.
Redirect.
Was there anything else wrong with this child's body? Like, did he die of natural causes?
No, he had no disease processes going on. He had no injuries.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. You may step down.
And she's free to go.
Okay. We're going to break for lunch, okay? But remember, this is our clock. Let's start back at 1:30. Do it for y'all? Okay. During the break, please do not discuss the case among yourselves or allow anyone to discuss it in your presence. If you go with the bailiff, please. You still freezing? We'll get back at 1:30. Why don't we get back at 1:25, us?
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thanks for watching. The next video in this series is coming soon. Be sure to check the description of this video for links to other videos in this case, including links to Brittany and Pedro interrogation videos. We apologize if we made any errors with respect to the witnesses' names. We are working off hard-to-read handwritten notes from the court. Until next time, Stephanie the Sleuth and Mentor Lawyer. Thanks for watching Deep Dive True Crime.
Warning signs of I need to pay attention to the kid. I need to pay attention to the kids. Let me go see what Pedro has to say.
Go with my foster parents, please.
Right now, we'll not, can't use the phone right now. But
I'm being arrested.
we are looking at different things. Again, it's just it's negligent. It's extremely negligent. Would you agree that it is kind of negligent?
Yes, I messed up today doing that.
But just today?
I've been going to work and doctor's appointments and everything else, and
has he not gotten?
Yes.
Has Casper not gotten out?
Yes.
Did he not get out when you were in Virginia? Or
No.
Maryland?
No.
We got documentation of in Maryland that he got out there too.
No.
And he's got out once with our, our deputies found him. Neighbor down the street has found him out.
This has only happened twice.
Have you been on Dunn Level Road and Ann Church Road? I mean, have you seen the traffic?
Yeah, but
would him not being gone once not scare you enough to say?
Yes, and I put the forms for him not to be able to go out. I mean, I put the little things on the doorknob and everything. I'm being a responsible parent and putting stuff on the door, and I'm also watching him to the best of my ability. I feel like I probably do more than Pedro some of the times with those kids. He wants me to cook. He wants me to clean. Yeah, sometimes he even gets mad at the kid that wants to hit them. Sometimes.
But,
yeah.
But he's not their biological dad. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and not saying that they're not, he hasn't been lies. But, so there might be some mindset there of, well, they ain't my kids.
No, he helps,
okay.
But there's times where he's like, fuck it. And yeah, there's times where he's like, can you go check on the kids? And blah, blah, blah. And the kids could be like just sitting there playing, laughing, and giggling. And he's like, oh, I have a fucking headache. Go check on the kids. Shut them up or something. I'm like...
And there's sometimes a disconnect between a biological father and just a guy that wants to be a dad every now and then. But it comes down to, if y'all are co-parenting, great, but apparently it wasn't working out.
And I was talking to, because of all this other issues with him, hammering down on me with stuff that he's fucked up with, that he's slipped up, because I've given him several times money for rent, for all the rent and everything. Can I go?
Well, but the thing
is, because of all the stuff that I'm trying to explain to you,
yeah.
He has been kind of like controlling big red flags, as my mom would say. He has hit my kids maybe once or twice, and I told him, don't do that. And he did it recently again, and I told him, you know what? I'm done. You need to stop. If you're going to co-parent, you need to do it right. And I hammered him about that, but he's been hammering me on some other shit that, like, he should be more attentive to. Like, we were supposed to go half-half with the rent as well. I gave him $600 for the rent and $100 whatever for, the light bill. I paid car insurance for him. The car's in his name. I paid the car insurance, the car payment, everything else. I'm paying all the bills. And we're late right now on a phone bill, a cable bill. And that's the only thing I have to pay. And I told him, I was like, you know what, I'm done. Either you can step up to the plate or I leave. And you're not going to know when I leave.
And I'm not ignoring that fact and whatever.
And I had plans as well as... Because
the kids are more important than any of that.
And that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
Because of the fact that my kids, I told him my kids are my main priority. If you're not going to stick it up as a man and help me around the house and also with the kids, then I'm going to go to Ohio with my sister. There I know my kids will be safe, and even if it's for temporarily giving my rights to my sister until I can get on my feet over there, I'll do it. Because Casper already shown several signs that he's not right with us right now. He needs a little bit more formality. You're not giving it to him. I'm trying to give it to him, but
DCF has reached out to you, and you've been in contact with DCF when you were up in Maryland, and they could have gave you the help. You want to reach out to them. Down here, they tried to get a hold of you.
They didn't leave anything on my mailbox or anything. Not on my door, nothing.
Because Pedro was contacted and said that he contacted you and told you that DCF was here.
But all he said was something about
but
what I told you, like.
But again, that would lead a reasonable person to believe, oh, let me contact DCF. They're contacting me. I gotta find out what the heck there is.
And I tried to contact, but he didn't tell me until it was around Thanksgiving. Oh well, a few weeks ago, the social workers came out, and I'm like, when was this? He said a couple weeks ago. And I said, and you couldn't tell me this a fucking couple weeks ago? He's like, I forgot. And I was like, you're real fucking smart. So I tried calling, and when I tried to call, it kept ringing, and then I look at my phone, I'm like, shit. It's Thanksgiving week.
But we can go on it, but the fact is today, neither one of y'all pays, and again, 3-year-old, but then again, I keep on going back to 1-year-old being left unsupervised.
Because at one point,
not even secured.
At one point, I did put Alex, the 1-year-old, in the stroller. Because Casper said he wanted him in the stroller so he could push him around in the room, like in the square or whatever. So I did put him in there for a little bit. And then when Pedro came, maybe he took him out and put him on the floor. Because when I came in, he was on the floor.
Like I said, that's it. There's so many supervision and neglectful issues going on between both of y'all. And Pedro's saying some things, you're saying some things. The fact of the matter is that, it was the best supervision wasn't given to these kids today. That's a fact.
And I agree with you, and I know that, if I noticed that Pedro wasn't doing what he should, I should have, stepped up. But I wasn't.
1-year-old should have never been left alone.
And I thought that 1-year-old was still in the stroller because I still heard it noise in the hear noise in the room. So it didn't really come to me like maybe something was wrong, or anything could be, I thought they were playing still. And then after that, I don't know when it happened, like time frame from.
Like I said, it was quite a bit of time they were left unsupervised. Let me go out here and discuss some things, and we'll let you know where we're going from here.
Am I allowed to go to my house or anything? Or?
Let me go out here and have some discussions, and then we'll give you the plan from here, okay?
So I'm not going to be able to see my kids today.
No. All right.
So the
youngest one is over at the medical examiner's office. Casper is on life support.
And so I won't be able to see them until tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, you won't be able to see the youngest one. Yeah, Alex.
When would I be able to see Alex? Would I have to get a business card from you guys, or?
I honestly can't, because it's gonna be a medical. The medical examiner's got to do their thing. There's an autopsy that's going to be done to determine cause of death, and then there's tests being ran on Casper to find out what happened to him. But obviously, with the core temperature,
That's heat.
Like I said, it takes a lot. And that was when they get those core temperatures they gave you, just like the Tetra gave you, or when they get to the hospital. That doesn't include when they were taken out of the room, that kind of stuff. So they were a lot harder than that. Which again, it takes a lot.
Can I please call my mom?
Not right now, but let me, faster I get out here and discuss some things, the faster we can let you know what's going on from here, okay?
Brittany, you okay? What do you need? Some water? Oxygen? All right, slow down your breathing. Look at me. Look at me.